Houston Texans going through what y'all need to know to make some money on this team in 2021. Last year, obviously, not very good. 4-12 led to the firing of Bill O'Brien, which has been coming for a long time. Not somebody that they're going to miss necessarily. They had some injuries on the defensive side of the ball. Will Fuller, an important player, had a suspension, and obviously Desean Watson. As a disclaimer, I'm not going to be talking about Desean Watson outside of one thing at the very beginning. He's not going to play for this team in 2021, so who cares? That one thing is with this betting record. So 12-3 on strong bets. So we're making a bunch of money. We're chilling at the top for sure. Overall, though, 23-16-3, that could have been a lot better. Desean Watson, while being a tremendously overrated player, is somebody who affects spreads, specifically over-unders, in pretty goofy ways. And that's where I kind of had trouble. I'm not going to get too much into it, like I said in this video, but that is the betting record. And again, 12-3, the important number we're showing. So as far as changes to this roster in the offseason, this team made about $1 billion of them. I think it's some record number of like free agent signings. It's something like 30 plus veterans to 1 year deals, something nutty like that. And we're going to talk about all the players as we go through the positions, but on this side, the losses, guys that we're going to be moving on from, the only ones we really care about, Randall Cobb, Will Fuller, two really good receivers. And defensively, obviously, J.J. Watt is gone. That one's tough. The only other guy I'll mention here is Benardrick McKinney. Benardrick McKinney is not a particularly good player. Not somebody you should be starting in the NFL in 2021. And this team lucked into one of the absolute most lopsided trades in the entirety of the offseason in swapping him 1-for-1 for Shaq Lawson. Shaq Lawson's a legitimately good player who plays the edge very well and should be starting on most teams in 2021. They lucked into that trade tremendously. I still don't understand how it happened. Unfortunately, however, that was not good enough for the Texans, as they just recently traded Shaq Lawson to the Jets for a 6th-round pick. One of the other more stupid things you're going to see. Whatever. Players not on the roster, so we're not going to get into it now, but not a good sign for this front office. This is a list of additions I mentioned earlier. We're going to talk about all these guys individually as we go, but yeah, as you can see, it's quite a few. This is the draft class. So with rookies, we'll talk about how good they are once they actually play in the NFL. Until then, I don't think there's a whole lot of point to it. I don't want to create expectations one way or the other when we're just trying to objectively make some money on this team. But this is their draft class. At quarterback, so we're going to go through position by position now, talk about all these players. So number in the top right is the total number of players they've ranked to that position, so 74 quarterbacks. And the number to the right of the name is where that player is out of that, so Tyrod Taylor, 31st out of 74th. What do you have in Tyrod Taylor? Well, you do have a guy who's been in the NFL for a while, made a lot of starts. As far as a player on the field, he is a guy who's going to be exceedingly conservative with the ball, keep the ball between 0 and 15 yards at effectively all times, is not going to be tremendously accurate even in that range, and his ability to push the ball down the field is, while not completely non-existent, not something that is ever going to be a positive, especially compared to other quarterbacks around the league. He does add a little bit with his legs, yes, but he is older at this point. He's not explosive even when he does do it. It's more of just a nice little bonus as opposed to something that really is driving your offense up and down the field. So yeah, he's going to make easy, smart-ish decisions near the line of scrimmage, but that's as good as you get, and that really is limiting to the ceiling of your offense. As backups, you have Jeff Driscoll, a guy who's actually played some okay snaps in the NFL against really bad defenses, granted. But yeah, he had some with your legs, but he gets really inaccurate, especially even compared to Tyrod Taylor. Not going to make a lot of correct decisions, that type of thing. Davis Mills, rookie, we'll see. Not exactly excited. And then there's Desean Watson, whatever. So then get to running back. They bring in three veterans who have all been good at some point in their career to add to David Johnson, who has also been good at some point in his career. Are any of them good now? No. So what I will say is that all these guys, despite not being particularly good or explosive at this point, do all kind of fit into this gigantic middle tier of running backs where, if you switch one of them onto an actually good offense, you get Philip Lindsay 20 carries on the Browns, he's going to be really productive, and that applies to basically all these guys. But individually, Philip Lindsay comes over the Broncos. He is good around the line of scrimmage. He's pretty explosive. He will create yards decently. However, not somebody who plays with a ton of power, obviously given his size, that's not surprising, but that doesn't change that it's a fact. And while he is explosive, I think that's pretty limited to 3-yard bursts and that type of thing. He's not somebody who outruns a lot of guys down the field. He's fine at it. Again, there's not really much of a difference in him and somebody who's ranked 20th at running back, but just kind of whatever. Mark Ingram at this point is definitely showing his age. He is pretty actively slow compared to where he was even a couple of years ago. So while, he is smart, he has pretty goddamn good vision, and he has better balance and agility that he's given credit for. It's nothing that you're going to like be worried about if you're a defense. And his lack of speed just really limits every carry that he has to being not as effective as it could be. David Johnson is like the same thing, but way further down the scale of degradation from injuries and age. He is incredibly non-explosive at this point. He does still have receiver skills down the field for sure, as far as understanding route concepts and creating separation that way. However, with his loss of athleticism, they don't manifest physically the way that they should. So yeah, he's still going to find space. Okay, sometimes be a decently smart player, but that's about the end of it. And he's going to struggle to make an impact. And as a runner at this point, he's just so slow. His acceleration effectively is at 0 at this point. They also bring in Rex Burkhead. The Patriots, he's fine. He, he's going to do what he's supposed to do. He is actually a little bit underrated as a runner. He can add yards to the end of run plays by kind of slithering his way to extra space, that type of thing. But again, he really, really limits your ceiling because he's just not explosive. At receiver, this is a receiver room that used to be real good and is now not so much. So you do start pretty good well with Brandon Cooks at the top. Brandon Cooks is a player I like quite a bit. I think he, again, I'm going to use underrated. I've used underrated a lot, but it applies to him as well. He just gets open. The dude is a modern NFL receiver who gets open pretty goddamn well. He's very fast, especially the further and further you get down the field. And overall, that creates a bunch of positives for your offense because the dude is just getting into space and making the quarterback's job fairly easy, or easier than it would be otherwise. He does have real flaws, however. He is one of these smaller receivers where his size actually does show up in a negative way. He cannot handle physicality, especially at the catch point, very well. And for a guy who's a super good downfield threat who's really fast, he doesn't actually like track the ball and adjust to the ball in the air very well. He's not like horrible at it, but the way that some guys like a Tyler Lockett or even a Christian Kirk, or that's not a good example, but a Tyler Lockett can get downfield and know what's happening and like find himself under the ball. Brandon Cooks is just kind of fine at it. Nothing is particularly impressive, and as an after the catch player, well, yeah, he is fast. That's kind of it. They trade for Anthony Miller. That trade I like quite a bit. Anthony Miller's he's fine. So he was very much disliked in Chicago for real reasons. He has horrible drop issues. I will fully admit that. However, he gets the first most important step of being a receiver out of the way with kind of flying colors, and that is, again, the dude creates separation. He is very good about getting open in the intermediate levels of the field. He is pretty goddamn quick and fast. He knows what he's doing. Like, Anthony Miller is exceedingly close to being a super valuable receiver. That is dependent, obviously, on his hands, which the dude, he just cannot adjust to balls outside of his frame. If it's thrown anywhere that isn't hitting him like in the neck, basically, he's likely to drop it, which is really, really tough. So he's a player of extremes because he's so good at the first thing. Really, he's like, people love Deontay Johnson on the Steelers. Anthony Miller's not that far away from him as like a separator and that type of stuff. It's the rest of the shit that gets into real trouble, which is it going to get fixed? Probably not. Actually, it's enough of a problem that I'm legitimately concerned about it. But I will say, he adds something with that first step. Then Chris Conley. Chris Conley should not be a starting receiver in the NFL. That was the case this entire time with the Jaguars. He is a really good athlete over time. If he's allowed to run in a straight line, the dude is going to fucking zoom away from everybody. That is a situation that almost never plays out, especially with a receiver who just doesn't create – like he's not ever – creating the space to then run into. He just can't separate it in his routes. He's not particularly physical. He's not good at catching the ball. For as much as Anthony Miller has bad hands, Chris Conley kind of does too. He's just not somebody who should really be starting an NFL roster. Now, he's not horrible. He will occasionally make catches. Like, he's not going to drop everything that comes to him, that type of thing, but he's not adding value. You have Nikko Collins, a rookie. Kiki Kuti, people have been excited about before. He's really whatever as a slot receiver. He does show some quickness at times. He can get a little bit open, but he's really limited, maybe even more to like 0 to 10 yards. And his physicality is at 0, creates almost nothing after the catch, whatever. He's as a player. You bring in Chris Moore from the Ravens, just not a guy who's, he's going to run the routes in your offense that he's supposed to, and if those routes would lead him to be open, sure, but he's never adding value. Andre Roberts is a returner. Alex Erickson, also basically a returner, who is really limited with his long speed and just not somebody who, despite his quickness that shows up in the return game, not somebody who gets open very well. At tight end, so another kind of tough one. You get Jordan Akins at the top. Now, Jordan Akins is a player I'm actually a fairly decent fan of because I think he shares a lot of commonalities to some other valuable like tight end twos around the NFL, namely like Johnny Smith being a good example. He's not at that level, but similar kind of because his biggest strength and something he's kind of legitimately good at is after the catch. Jordan Akins can like do things with the ball in his hands that most tight ends are just not capable of. He's really, really good athlete, at least on the field. I'm not sure what his like measurable numbers are, but it shows up on the field very well. He's strong, fast, stays up through contact. Overall, like he's awesome about that. He's also a decent blocker for more of a receiving style tight end. Nothing special, but he's going to be able to do the job in your offense. However, past that, he's not somebody who gets open very well at all. He just doesn't have the shake in his routes or whatever, the understanding of how to put his, whatever you want to say it is. He just doesn't get open all that well. And while, he can run like curls short the way that every tight end in the NFL can, it's nothing special. So I do like him as a player. I think he's very useful as a starting tight end. I get worried about his ability to consistently positively impact your offense. Pharaoh Brown as a backup has been in the league for a while, never been a relevant player. I don't probably shouldn't even have him ranked. He's not really someone I'm comfortable talking about. Ryan Izzo is bad. He's not horrible. He'll do his job as a blocker, actually, similarly to like Akins. However, you take that and then you take away all positive receiving ability. Doesn't even have good hands. Doesn't like use space if he's in it very well. Just a bad player overall. Anthony Auclair is a blocker only, signed from the Buccaneers. Brevin Jordan is a rookie people used to be excited about, not so much anymore. Offensive line. So this is not the encouraging spot necessarily, but there's at least a little something here, I will say, that gives me pause on calling this team completely horrible. Because of tackle, they're actually pretty good. Laramie Tunsil's awesome as a starter. He's not in the elite tier tackles because he's not perfect as a pass protector. He's not going to handle the like TJ Watts, Myles Garrett's all that well. He's going to stand up fine. Like he's still good, and he has the trait of kind of like a DJ Humphries or something like that. He's a lot better at it, but where if it's not one of those elite rushers, like he will be just fine, and you don't have to worry about him at all. So Laramie Tunsil's definitely absolutely valuable, really very much worth starting. Really, really good player. He also doesn't really add anything in the run game. He can lean on people okay, but his athleticism that shows up in pass protection doesn't necessarily translate there. He's not somebody who's like shoving dudes off the line of scrimmage or anything like that. Titus Howard is kind of good. He's underrated. He's because I know some people in this offseason even talked about like, oh, maybe he should move to guard. That type of thing. Absolutely not. Titus Howard as a player at tackle. I'm going to start with the big positive, which the dude is kind of a monster in the run game. He will actually blow up double teams, and like he moves well as an athlete. He can get out into space, can do his job very well. Is going to consistently be where he's supposed to be and winning at that spot. And as a pass protector, he's fine. He definitely has issues with high-end rushers, as many players do. Remember, he's a young offensive lineman, and those issues aren't even that pronounced. It's not like he's getting smoked regularly at all. In fact, he kind of never gets beaten that badly. He will lose sometimes. He's not great laterally, with these true speed rushers, that type of thing. But overall, I'm way more than comfortable with him as a starter. Titus Howard's like pretty good. Then you also bring in Jerron Christian as a free agent, who's another starter-worthy tackle. Now, he's pretty limited at the high end, right? Because he, again, can't keep up with elite rushers, and as a run blocker, he's worse than Tunsil. He doesn't really add anything. But as a pass protector, he's going to consistently do his job and not be the reason your offense sucks, which as a tackle that is absolutely valuable. And they have him as a backup. That's awesome. At guard, Meg Sharping, he's fine. He was kind of drafted as a tackle. He's played both at times. And yeah, he's whatever. He's not somebody who I'm particularly impressed with at guard in terms of being a difference maker in the run game. Again, kind of does his job, has okay athleticism, never going to be somebody who's consistently killing blockers or killing defenders or anything like that. The other spot, though, that's where I have much bigger questions. So you bring in Justin Mcrae, who as of right now is projected to be a starter. I don't see how that one goes well, to be honest with you. He hasn't played a ton of snaps in recent years, but when he has played, just kind of bad. He doesn't. He's one of these guys, these guards who, like, he's doing his job, but he's going out there and mentally like, okay, I'm supposed to do this and this, but physically, like on the field, it just doesn't really happen like that. Like he doesn't really get to his spots very well. If he does get there, he will get, thrown around sometimes, juked around. Good defensive linemen will defeat him with their hands pretty easily. Overall player who I'm very much concerned about. Now he is a guard, to be clear. So like, I don't know if he's quite bad enough where he's going to tank an offense from the guard position, but he's definitely not good. And at center, he signed Justin Britt, who again is probably going to be a starter, who hasn't played in at least a year, if not more than that. Now, way earlier in his career, he was okay. He was sometimes the best offensive lineman on a really bad Seattle offensive line, but that's kind of a long time ago at this point. And while I'm not terrified of him,